Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be ranking all 78 brawlers in the game right now on how good I think their voice lines are overall. So this is just my personal opinion. I'm sorry if I offend any of you guys with your brawler mains, but again, it's just me. I've been playing the game pretty much since day one, and you know, some of these might be really iconic and some of them I may mute. So we're going to be starting off in alphabetical order. So that starts off with 8-bit.
Get ready. You win. Let's go!
So 8-bit, I feel like there's a lot of cool voice lines, but at the same time, there's not any that really ring a bell when I think of this brawler. I think the cooler ones are to do with his skins, like Saloon 8-bit with his cool little jingles. I really do love that. And Virus 8-bit as well, got some really cool voice lines. I don't think it's that memorable. So next we have Amber. So I really like Amber's voice lines overall. A lot of them kind of play on the fact that, of course, she's a fire brawler.
Muy caliente, and the burning continues.
So I like those funny kind of playing with words, but at the same time, again, none of them really ring a bell too much with me. So I'll just say that they're good voice lines. So with Angelo, I feel like his voice lines are actually pretty funny. They're really sassy, which I know that's kind of my sense of humor, if you get what I mean.
I am the drama. Hey, I'm just winging it.
But at the same time, there's a few voice lines that let him down. Unfortunately, they kind of play around the fact that he's a fly, even though he's a mosquito. So I'm not too sure what he is. Is he a fly? Is he a mosquito? So next we have Ash. So as a brawler, not many people really enjoy playing him. And I think a big reason is actually his voice lines. His voice lines are really uninspiring.
In it to in it! Rat attack! Love you.
I know he's a trash brawler, literally, that is him, with a Scottish accent as well. Some people will like it, but after reading through the voice lines, I just don't think there's anything out there that's actually too funny. So next we have Barley, who's an OG brawler. Just for that kind of sentimental value, I would start to put him higher up. But when you actually look at his voice lines and the overall, again, there's only a couple that I really enjoy.
I'm ready to serve. Awfully sorry. You've been served.
He doesn't really say all that much. So for that reason, I'd actually put him in meh, because there's nothing that's really makes me laugh too much. So next we have a B. So I like a lot of her voice lines. I catch myself saying them when I'm playing her a lot.
Let's go explore. Don't call me honey. Beautiful. So many specimens to discover.
And I just like to play on words with bees, stings, honey. There's just so much, I don't know, so many things I laugh about with B, so I've got to put it in great. So now moving on to Belle. I feel like this was a tough one to balance because she's one of my main brawlers, a little bit of bias here, but at the same time, she just gives me this kind of tough mum vibe.
First we shoot, and then we loot. Turning up the heat. I'm shoulder to the holder.
And a lot of the voice lines I feel like really fit her playstyle, especially when you're getting kills and whatever else. So I've got to put her in the decent. Now moving on to BB. This one is a straightforward one for me. This could be close to iconic. I've got to put it in great though. There's so many good voice lines.
Chew on this. Mr. Bat says hi.
Where again, it just fits the playstyle with BB. You know, smacking someone in the face with the bat, and BB's just slaying with the voice lines. I love it. So now moving on to Bo. This one is a little bit hard. I feel bad for Bo because his voice lines match his character really well. So in that sense, it could be like towards great.
Fly like an eagle. My mind is clear.
But in terms of the stuff he says, it kind of bores me with nature and whatever else. It's not really that exciting or funny. So I've just got to put it in the meh. So with Bonnie, a lot of people might not agree with me here because some people might find the kind of younger voice being really annoying. But at the same time, I just love the energy.
Look at all those explosions. Exciting.
And just, it really fits with Bonnie's playstyle. Again, probably more of the fun brawlers might have more fun voice lines because you're literally getting shot out of a cannon with Bonnie. So that might, of course, sway some decisions, but I just like the voice lines. They're really cool. So moving on to Brock, I feel like this is a really easy one. At minimum, it's great. But for me, as an OG, I've got to put it in iconic.
Easy. You got wrecked. Time to move to the boombox groove.
Mainly because I can recite a lot of his voice lines just off the top of my head, and I've not even played with game sound my whole life, so I know what Brock says a lot of times with take the L, you know, Brock got nerfed, Brock is OP, Rocket Red. There's just so many that I remember with playing Brock. So next up we have Bull, so another OG brawler. I feel like I've got more kind of relations with Bull just because we see a lot of the voice actor Russell on Twitter, and he's just really in tune with the community, so I feel like I'd like his voice lines even more. Maybe without him I probably would put Bull a little bit lower.
Go Don't mess with the bull! You wanna brawl? Bulldozer!
But Bulldozer is just so iconic. It could literally, like I said, even be iconic, but great probably is a good place for it. So next we have Buster. I feel like this one, again, is a little bit harder because my personal bias, I've not played Buster too much, don't find him that enjoyable.
Let's go to the danger zone! Enjoy the show!
But at the same time, I can appreciate some good voice lines and just a play on words with the whole kind of cinema and how he's always screening with his super. So now we're moving on to Buzz, one of the most popular brawlers in the game, and I can see why after listening to his voice lines again and again.
Feel the floaty. You just wouldn't listen. Resuscitation is my vocation.
I was going to put it in great, but in all honesty, his voice lines are pretty much perfect. It completely summarizes how you play him, and I feel like every voice line just hits. I can understand you Buzz mains now. I might have to play him a lot more. So next we have Byron, another little bit of bias because he's one of my favorite brawlers, but at the same time, I just love his personality.
Time to seal the deal. How unfortunate.
I just love the kind of old school British vibes with him. So next up we have Cole. This might be a controversial opinion. I was actually going to put him in the muted because he has kind of got an annoying voice and some really annoying voice lines, but at the same time I feel like I can appreciate that. Make his character so good with these voice lines. It's actually borderline iconic, but you guys might hate me for it. It's such a, I don't know, unpopular opinion, but I've got to put it in great.
Highly doubtful. Your best is my worst. Triangulation rocks the nation.
Again, the fact that so many people talk about his voice lines and all different quirky stuff he says, I think it's got to be in great at least. So now moving on to a fairly new brawler in the game with Charlie. So you'd feel like there's some other brawlers that could easily be above her, but at the same time, I just love her French accent.
Let the carnival of carnage begin. I stole your heart. Literally.
And I also feel like probably because I've played her so much because she's been so meta, the voice lines are just stuck in my head. But for that reason, they must be good. So I've got to put it in great. Moving on to another legendary brawler, we have Chester. So in terms of what he's one of our least favorite brawlers in the game, but is a big fan favorite. And I can see why. He's got a really fun kit and his personality with his voice lines is extremely fun as well.
Prize! Please leave a review. You want salt with that? What will it be?
You know, if you get a cheesy kill with your super and whatever else, his voice line always kind of deciphers that moment perfectly. So I feel like Chester has to be iconic, even though my personal bias will put it a little bit lower. So next we have Chuck. So in terms of his voice lines overall, I feel like they suit his character a lot, but not very inspiring.
The pain train!
I can't really recite many of his voice lines, but at the same time, I think it fits his personality pretty well, so I've got to put it in decent. So next up we have Colette. So in terms of her personal character, I get very creeped out by Colette, but that just goes to show her voice lines just show her character really well.
Just want your autograph. I see you.
I've got to put it in great because that kind of obsession stalker vibes that you get with all the different brawlers in a scrapbook, I think the voice lines really play a big part in that. So next we have Colt. Even though he's an OG brawler, there might be a little bit of sentimental bias with that, but at the same time, Colt is so iconic.
Bullet storm. Check out my guns.
And it has to be with his voice lines as well. For like I know all of his voice lines, it just makes you feel better when you play Colt. Moving on to another legendary, we have Cordelius. So I guess I just kind of don't like Cordelius too much because of his toxic vibes. He just give me a really creepy nature. I don't know what it is. I think it's just because he's stuck inside this mask.
Hey, mushroom! Friends! Fly, mushroomies!
I think if you're a good Cordelius main, I think he's got really good potential with his voice lines, but again, I don't really enjoy them too much, so I can appreciate them though, so it's got to be at least decent. So moving on to the next legendary brawler, we have Crow. So again, he is an iconic brawler in the game itself, and the voice lines definitely help that out.
Leave it with the fishes! Don't mess with my crew!
Doesn't have many voice lines, but I feel like most of them just make him such a badass bird that I've got to put him in iconic. So now moving on to Daryl. Unfortunately, he's one of my favorite brawlers, but in terms of the voice lines, they absolutely butchered him.
Yo ho 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 ho! That's how I roll!
They changed his voice lines a couple of years ago now, and they just made him into this really high-pitched pirate, it's actually worse than it was before. So unfortunately, I would rather just play Daryl on mute. So now moving on to our favorite winner boy, we have Doug. So in terms of his personality and his voice lines, they are seriously iconic.
All toppings! No, don't be a whiner. Have a wiener!
I was really excited to play Doug and test him out. Thought he might be one of my favorite brawlers, but then his mechanics let him down. But his voice lines, I've got to say, are just so goated. Next brawler is another OG. It is Dynamite. So again, one of my worst brawlers to play, but that won't affect my bias because he's easily at least great.
Down mine! Who wants some TNT?
I'm gonna actually put him in iconic. Main reason being is because again, I catch myself saying pretty much all of his voice lines whilst I'm playing him, so he's got to be in iconic. So next we have Edgar. So I do get annoyed when I face off against him.
This is so lame. I could do this if I wanted to.
But I've got to appreciate some good voice lines. It definitely enhances the experience when you play with him because of the voice lines. I've got to at least put it in great. So next we have El Primo. How could I not just put this brawler straight into iconic? He's the main reason I would say that outside of Brawl Stars, he actually has meme potential.
Ha ha ha! You lose! Ha 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 ha! El Primo!
I see so many memes on TikTok or wherever else on Twitter of people just screaming El Primo and just doing stupid things. So for that reason, he's probably the most iconic brawler. So next we have Ems, and straight away I'm just going to put Ems into the muted category. Main reason being is because I don't know what it is about her. Whenever she talks,
Did someone here unfollow me? Hashtag no filter.
I just want to use a brawler like Mortis and just wreck her. I don't know what it is about her voice. It's so annoying. So next up we have Eve. I think she's got some really clever and funny voice lines, but at the same time, none of them are really like that appealing.
Mind your language. Sorry, but you deserve that.
And too funny, so she's just got to be in the decent tier. So next up we have Fang. So he's a pretty iconic brawler, one of the most popular brawlers in the game. I'm not too scared to tread on people's toes and offend them, but at the same time, Fang actually is iconic.
Check me out. I got moves. Free refills on Foot Punch.
Again, I don't really like playing him that much, but his voice lines are so funny. And at the same time, I find myself spamming his pins a lot in games. So that just goes to show that his voice lines are really iconic. So next up we have Frank, but how can you even like put him in a tier? Like I feel like his voice lines are fine for Frank, but at the same time, he doesn't really say much other than just groaning. So I'll just put it in meh because they're not really funny, but at the same time, I'm not going to mute him, am I? Because it's just poor Frank. He's just defenseless. So next up, we have Gale. So as an old man myself, I can kind of relate to Gale a lot of the times.
I might be slow, but I can sure make it snow.
There's just so many funny ones that a lot of people won't get, but I get because I'm old. So next up, we have Gene. Again, very biased because Gene is one of my main brawlers, but at the same time, I just love his laugh. I think it really helps out his character overall. Again, doesn't really say much. He doesn't really have a voice line. But this is my tier list, and I've got to put him in great. Again, I can easily understand why some of you guys might put him down there. I just love his evil laugh. So next up, we have Gray, and yeah, Gray doesn't talk whatsoever. He's literally a mime. So yeah, he doesn't really have any character. I mean, I actually find his pins pretty funny when he's like waving at people when he disappears. That's pretty funny. So I may as well just get Spikes out of the way as well. Neither of these guys say anything, so they're literally muted. So next up we have Griff. So I'm not too sure whether this would be controversial or not. I don't actually play Griff too much, but his voice lines alone are so goated. It reminds me of Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob, and I think for that reason alone, I've got to put it in iconic.
Should have read the terms and conditions. Open for business.
Every single voice line I feel like really enjoy listening to. He's just hilarious. So next we have Grom. So I really like Grom's voice lines. I find myself saying it back to him a lot of the time sarcastically on stream.
Must remember, bring walkie-talkie.
The bear is in the circus.
So I've got to put it in the great for that reason. So now moving on to Gus. So again, one of my favorite brawlers to play, but his voice lines aren't really the most inspiring. You guys might like it, but at the same time, I only really like a couple of them.
Spooky is gonna get you.
Most of them are just pretty boring. The best one's probably you got bested by a child, but other than that, I just don't really find them that cool. So next up, we have the main man himself, Hank. I think even before I started all the memes, and I didn't even like Hank to begin with, I really appreciated his personality.
I was prawn ready. I'm a prawn star.
And just his funny one-liners that he comes up with, like, I'm a prawn star, and I'll give you shrimp cocktail, and all these funny things around him being a shrimp. how could you not love Hank? Next up, we have Jackie. So at the same time, some of the voice lines are a little bit questionable.
Let's go kick some. That's what you get.
But I like the fact that it's the closest thing we've got to any type of, like, swearing in Brawl Stars. So for that reason alone, I've got to put it in decent. So next up, we have Janet. So if I was to put Janet in the muted, I would have a whole army after me. But at the same time, I actually appreciate Janet's voice lines.
Sorry, can't see you from up here. Hi.
You're low.
Watch the birdies.
I really like them. I think it fits her character a lot. So I've got to put it in great. So next up, we have Jessie, another OG brawler in the game and a fan favorite. At the same time, I still think her voice lines are still absolutely iconic. I find myself saying all of her voice lines all of the time.
Where will I put my friend? Constructing!
Like, where shall I put my little friend? Don't mess with Jet. Like, there's just so many funny ones. She's got to be iconic. So next up, we have Kit. So I feel like with the recent Kit apocalypse a couple of months back, people might not actually like Kit that much.
Try to get over it. Where did that small red dot go?
But I find myself just laughing at that I'm playing a cat and it's just so sassy. So I gotta appreciate a good voice line. So now we're moving on to Larry and Laurie, and I don't know what it is with the twins. I just don't really like their voice lines. Maybe because they've just been terrorizing me on Ladder and Brawl Stars for months now.
Say hello to the bad cop. Optimism, one again.
But at the same time, I just don't really like them. They just scare me, their voice lines. I'd rather just mute them. So next up, we have Leon, another legendary brawler. I feel like his overall character is iconic.
Woohoo! Sneaky time.
But his voice lines, I don't really find myself knowing too many of them except for Sneaky Time and maybe him screaming. Yeah, that's about it. So next we have Lola. So another brawler that's not too popular. I think her voice lines do carry her character quite a lot.
Roll out the red carpet. Say hello to my little friend.
But at the same time, there's none of them that I'm just too interested in. So now moving on to Lou. I really like his character. I really love his voice lines.
I got the drip to make you slip. Blueberry twirl, keep it frosty.
It just suits him. He's just a goofy snow cone machine, and for that reason, it's got to be at least great. So next up, we have Maisie. So I feel like her character overall is a little bit uninspiring, and at the same time, her voice lines as well are pretty uninspiring.
Watch out! Stand back! Maisie to the rescue.
Nothing really much to it. I find it pretty boring. Next up, we have Mandy. I know a lot of people are going to be saying that it should be near the bottom because higher pitched voice lines are typically a little bit more annoying.
Sugar Blast! Mandy's candy!
But I've got to put Mandy near the great at least, mainly because I feel like when I'm connecting supers, I feel like her voice lines just make me feel a bit more satisfied. Next up, we have Max, one of my favorite brawlers in the game to play, and the voice lines just really go well with the character.
Turbo time! Go, 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 go!
The fastness, the constant play on words, I love it. So now we're moving into probably the most annoying brawler in the game. By far, in my opinion, it has to be Meg.
I did it! Trust the process. Robot rampage.
I know a lot of you people in the comments would agree with me on this one. I don't know what it is with Meg. Her voice lines are just so annoying. I just feel like I want to punch the character. So now moving on to the newest brawler in the game, we have Melody. I feel like she's got a really good character about her, but the voice lines were some of the most questionable ones that Brawl Stars have ever introduced.
Melodians, 탈떡한데.
I remember checking Twitter and everyone was just on fire with these voice lines. I think if they remove some of the unnecessary moaning after a couple of seconds after she's finished her voice line, I don't know, I just don't understand it. But I'll put it in there. If they remove that, I'd actually put it in great. Next up, we have our favorite monkey. It's Miko. So I love his voice lines. I think it just adds to his character overall a lot.
Whoa, time for some whack-a-noodle. Boom, ba-boom.
And a lot of the stuff he says is just a cool play on words. I just like playing him. So next up, we have Mortis. Not my favorite character in the game, but probably the most favorite character in Brawl Stars.
Have much fear, Mortis is here. I bring you the gift of darkness.
I think his voice lines are a big reason why people love him so much. I've got to easily put it in icon. So next up, we have Mr. P. He's one of the most annoying brawlers to ever face off against. And I think a big reason is to do with his voice lines. His penguins as well. Everything about it. I just want to strangle him because the annoying noises he makes, even when he giggles and everything else. I know it might be very similar to Gene, you might say, but I don't know, something about those penguins in this shoot, it really grinds my gears. Next up, we have Nanny. I think Nanny's quite a cute robot.
My bad. Recording.
I personally enjoy playing Nanny a lot, but the voice lines aren't really too inspiring. I don't really remember too many of them, so I've got to put it in there. Next up, we have Nita. I know she's an OG brawler. I know she's pretty iconic as a brawler herself, but the voice lines are just pretty annoying. It's just a bunch of screaming. And I don't know, it just makes me want to kill her in game even more. So next up we have Otis. So I actually find his voice lines hilarious because I'm just picturing there's actually someone that's just probably goggling on a bunch of water, pretty much choking themselves with water, which is just hilarious. But at the same time, it's just pretty annoying. I just kind of want to mute him. So next we have your favorite thick mama. It is Pam. So I was actually debating to put Pam in the decent, but then I remember over the years her voice lines have been very iconic, especially Wham Bam Here Comes Pam.
Bam, bam, here comes Pam!
I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna have to put Pam into the iconic tier. So next up we have Pearl. So typically robots can be pretty annoying in the voice lines. I actually appreciate all of her voice lines. They're quite a funny play on words with the fact that she's an oven that bakes cookies.
A mom on a mission. Let's turn up the heat and serve some justice.
There's a few weird ones like free diabetes, for example, but at the same time, I do find her character quite funny. Next up, we have a very OG brawler with Penny. I think most of her voice lines I don't really remember too much.
Bye-bye.
So for the most part, I just have to put her in the meta. So next up, we have a Piper. So we all love Sassy Piper with her voice lines.
This ain't my first rodeo. Bless your heart.
Overall, just a British nature. I like it, so I've got to put it in the great tier. So next up, we have Poco. So another OG brawler. A lot of the times, I'm a little bit biased for that reason. I love playing Poco, and especially a few of his voice lines like Poco Goes Loco.
Lead guitar for the win!
And all of that stuff. But at the same time, there's a few that kind of let him down, so I've got to put it in the decent. So now moving on to Rico. He literally is one of my two mains. Gene and Rico, my favorite brawlers in the game. But I'm gonna say I'm pretty disappointed in his voice lines overall.
Sorry, I am not sorry.
Maybe because he's a robot, his voice lines don't come across the best, but at the same time, I don't know, it's not really that funny when I play Rico. So next up, we have your favorite British plant with Rosa. So again, I love the play on words, I love the jokes, but I feel like many people won't really understand the jokes too much.
Hello, hello, hello. Rosa is my name, botany's my game.
Not actually that funny, so for that reason, I've got to put it in the meta. So next up, we have Ruffs. So I love Ruff's character because he's a dog, and who doesn't love dogs? But at the same time, I felt like with how they did Kit, it made me realize how they really let down Ruffs with the voice lines.
Bird is the word. Battle stations!
For that reason, I've got to put it in there. So next up, we have Sam. So again, another British character where I feel like it's just a bit too corny.
Sucker punch! It's a knockout!
He does make some good jokes, but at the same time, I don't really like it too much. It's too corny for me. So next, we have your favorite sleepy boy with Sandy. So I like Sandy's voice lines. They really play into his character a lot, but maybe because he's too sleepy.
I guess I have to do stuff.
Yay! Woohoo! He doesn't really say a lot, so I've got to put it in the decent. Next up, we have Shelly. So she could be iconic because she's literally an OG brawler. She's the starter brawler in the game.
Let's go get him.
But at the same time, I feel like she doesn't actually say all too much in her voice lines. There's a few really iconic ones. So for that reason, though, I've got to put her in grade. So now moving on to Sprout. This might be controversial because a lot of people don't really enjoy playing Sprout, but his voice lines I think are so cute.
Hello, fertilizing.
The little robot noises he makes, I don't know, makes me just love playing Sprout a lot more. So now moving on to Squeak, you know where this is going straight away. It has to go straight into the muted. I remember when he first came out, I actually had to mute the game because all the annoying noises that were coming out with his super and whatever else, it was so distracting. So I just had to mute him. So now moving on to Stu. So typically robots don't have the best voice lines, but I love playing Stu. I love his funny stuff that he comes out with being a stunt robot. I think it suits him pretty well. So next up we have Surge. So another robot. He's a legendary brawler, and I feel like the voice lines make him very legendary. I'd have to easily put it in the grid tier, maybe because his voice lines are really high energy. It comes across a lot better.
It's party time! Super Surge!
But it just makes me enjoy playing him more. So next up we have Tara. So I know she's another brawler that doesn't really say a lot, so you could just literally put her in the literally muted tier. But at the same time, I feel like her mysterious noises are pretty in tune with how you're playing her. Next up we have Tick. So he's an annoying robot. His mechanics overall in the game annoy me. His voice annoys me. His face annoys me. Everything annoys me. He's straight into muted. So next up we have Artie. So I missed him out a couple of brawlers ago, but Artie, I actually like playing him. I think his voice lines are pretty cool overall.
Please, ask me
anything.
He's got this cute robot vibe about him, even though he's a stalker robot. I still appreciate his voice lines. Last but not least, we have Willow. So an uninspiring character overall. I think she's pretty bland. Her voice lines overall
I'm not your bog standard villain.
are pretty bland, so I'd have to put it in a meh tier. So that's going to be it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.